Hey, Grace Bible Youth Group. I'm laughing because as I started this video, I noticed that right over there against the wall, I will not show it to you, there is a dead mouse just hanging out. I thought I would share that with you just to give you just a glimpse of home. But yeah, so we're going to be in Lamentations 4 today. We're going to be looking at verses 11 through 20. And we are going to be referring back to the first half of this chapter, though, because these two sections kind of go together in this lesson as I teach it. So, but what I want to ask you is, in times of hardship and trouble, what do you go to? Where's like your comfort zone? What do you put the most stake in? Honestly, is it your family? Is it a parent? Is it an item? Maybe it's your phone. That's your comfort zone. Maybe it's your children. I know the teens don't have children, but if you're an adult listening to this, maybe it's your children. I know that when I'm at places that I'm not necessarily comfortable being, I can use my children as a shield. That's my comfort zone. And so if I don't know what to say to people, I will play with my children. So, but don't take that as I don't want to be there. Okay. So if you see me playing with my children, it's not like, what's wrong with that guy? But I feel like there are certain things that I run to that are mainstays in my life, that it's just the stable area of my life. Now, imagine that being taken away from you. Imagine being stripped of your phone, stripped of your vice, stripped of your comfort, stripped of everything that you had hope in, things that you relied on, things that you were optimistic in going to, whether it's video games, movies, music, whatever it is. Maybe it's where it's a place, maybe like you get stripped of this thing. I can't imagine what it would be like to lose my children. I can't imagine what it would be like to lose my wife, to lose my family, to lose my friends, to lose my house, to lose certain things that I do find solace in, that I do find just a place of complacency, my sanctuaries. Well, in this chapter 4, we remember that this is a memoir of what life used to be like and now how it is. But this is also a picture. Chapter 4 is also a picture of what things the Israelites put their hope in besides God that put them in the position that they're in. And it's almost like the author doesn't even recognize that this is what's going on. But let's read verse 11 through 20, and then we're going to jump around and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let's start at verse 11. It says, "The Lord gave full vent to his wrath. He poured out his hot anger, and he kindled a fire in Zion that consumed its foundations. The kings of the earth did not believe, nor any of the inhabitants of the world, that foe or enemy could enter the gates of Jerusalem. This was for the sins of her prophets and the iniquities of her priests, who shed in the midst of her the blood of the righteous. They wandered blind through the streets. They were so defiled with blood that no one was able to touch their garments. Away, unclean people cried at them. Away, away, do not touch. So they became fugitives and wanderers. People said among the nations, they shall stay with us no longer. The Lord himself has scattered them. He will regard them no more. No honor was shown to the priests, no favor to the elders. Our eyes failed, ever watching vainly for help. In our watching, we watched for a nation which could not save. They dogged our steps so that we could not walk in our streets. Our end drew near. Our days were numbered, for our end had come. Our pursuers are swifter than the eagles in the heavens. They chased us on the mountains, and they lay in wait for us in the wilderness. The breath of our nostrils, the Lord anointed, was captured in their pits, of whom he said, under his shadow we shall live among the nations." And so We're going to split this up into 3 groups, and then we're going to go back in the first 10 verses, and we're going to look at a couple other things. So in what we see in verses 11 and 12, we see that Israel, or Jerusalem specifically, saw itself as an impenetrable fortress. It was like, we're the powerhouse. When other nations look at us, we're stronger. There's no way they can break down our walls. There's no way they could take us over. And their hope was in the strength of their walls, in the strength of a perceived protection. And then in verses 13 all the way through 16, there is this, you see the prophets and the priests that are being brought low. In fact, they're defiled. You would almost say that there for a while they had hope in these people because they're brought up. But what happened is they weren't holding true to the law. They were sinning. They're regarded as unclean. In verse 14, they wandered blind through the streets. They were so defiled with blood. It's not that they're killing people. It's that whenever you touched blood of an animal or a person or anything, you were deemed unclean. So what they're saying is they were unclean wandering through the streets, which is a complete no-no. If you were unclean in Jerusalem, you had to leave the city. You had to leave the city for 7 days most of the time until you were regarded clean, and then you could come back in. But this is just a testimony of how blatant they were against the law. And it says that no one was able to touch their garments. So they would walk through the streets with people walking around, and you had to avoid them. And then it says, away, unclean people cried at them, away, away, do not touch. So they became fugitives and wanderers. People said among the nations, they shall stay with us no longer. They were so bad that the other nations were like, you can't stay here either. And so we see a desperate hope in the security of a nation, and we see an obvious fleeting hope in the spiritual leaders of the nation. And then finally, we see what they were once regarded something held high is now being brought low. In verse 20 or verse 19, it says, our pursuers were swifter than the eagles in the heavens. They chased us on the mountains. They lay in wait for us in the wilderness. The breath of our nostrils, the Lord's anointed. This is the King of Israel. Or Jerusalem. This is our president. This is the hierarchy of the political system. He's the Lord's anointed. Was captured in their pits, of whom we said, under his shadow we shall live among the nations. There was a hope in this king that we should live among the nations. He is it. He's the one that's going to help us. He's the one that's going to redeem us. And that guy is in the pit. So we see 3 things here that the Israelites had put their hope in, and all 3 things had failed. Security, so the walls. We saw spiritual leadership. Obviously, that was messed up. And then finally, the king. The king wasn't strong enough. It's not that he did anything wrong. He wasn't strong enough. And they put hope in that. And there is this understanding that even that didn't save us. When we look at the first 10 verses of chapter 4, we see that as well. As we went over this last week, there are certain things that they put hope in that, or security in, right? So when they see in verse 2 how precious sons of Zion worth their weight in fine gold, how they are regarded as earthen pots, the work of potter's hands. Or verse 1, how the gold is grown dim, how the pure gold is changed, the holy stones lie scattered at the head of every street. There is this understanding like that Zion was just a place, or Jerusalem was a place to behold, and was so great, and there was a security in knowing that you were the valued treasure. that you are God's chosen people. And so you are invulnerable. You're immune. Things can't happen. And because of how people perceive us, things can't happen. It goes on and it talks about let me see. Those who once feasted on delicacies perished in the streets. They had put their faith and hope in wealth and in sustenance. The chastisement of the daughter of my people has been greater than the punishment of Sodom, which is overthrown in a moment, and no hands were wrung for her. And this is her princes were purer than snow, whiter than milk. Their bodies were more ruddy than coral. The beauty of their form was like sapphire. And by the way, all of these things, if you can imagine what it's like now in our nation, we go side by side with a lot of these things. Like we can easily believe that America is invulnerable, that no one is going to touch America. No one's going to fight America because we would win. We don't know that. You could have all the faith and all the hope in the world in how great our nation is. We could have faith in how stable we have it. We could have faith in our self-sufficiency of what we own and what we have and the money that we put in the bank and the savings account and all of this stuff. And chapter 4 is a clear reminder that at any point in time, we could be stripped of these earthly complacencies and comfort levels. And that is what God is doing to these Israelites. He is stripping them of all that they have, everything that they found hope in, everything that they found solace in, everything that they found comfort in, because what those things led to was complacency and sin and complete rebellion against the Lord. In fact, I love what an author says. He says that they were proudly rebelling against God. That in their pride, they could not admit that they were wrong. And so what God does is he strips them of everything that they're holding to until they only have him. And what is scary and sad is when they were stripped of all their comfort, when they were stripped of everything, you really saw the depravity of man. The fact that women were eating their own children. That is scary. That is beyond sad. It is a place where they went, but the heart is desperately wicked. And when you have your comfort level that's taken away from you, where do you go? Where would you go? Would you be just a mess? Would you turn to God? Because that's the hope. That's what God often is trying to portray and communicate with us, is that I'm going to take this from you now so that you look at the only place where there is true hope, and that's God. So I don't know if you're going through something right now. I don't know if you have gone through something, but maybe there's some soul searching that you can do in this time of has there been a time in your life where something was stripped from you? Maybe someone broke into your home, because that's scary. Maybe someone broke into your car. Maybe someone had pushed on the comfort levels of where you are finding stability in other places other than God. And what are you learning? What have you learned from that? What have you learned about yourself from that? Maybe you have a realization that you're relying on something that you shouldn't. Maybe you're realizing right now as you're going through something that God is the only fix. It's not a pastor. It's not the church. It's not the country, the leaders, the political system. It's not our president. It's not neighboring nations. It's not your friends. It's not you. They could be the best friends in the world, and they cannot fix you. Only God can do that. Only God can bring you true fulfillment, true comfort, and fill the void that we're desperately trying to fill with other things. And so maybe that's what you're learning right now, is a total reliance on him. You look around you and nothing else has worked. Nothing. You're like, maybe if I do this, maybe if I go to these people, maybe if I do this a little bit more, and you're going, I'm at a loss. Literally, I've tried everything. My encouragement to you and my only advice is to keep running to God. And you could go, I've even tried that. Run to him again. Remember, as we've looked in the past, lament isn't meant to be done once. It's meant to be done over and over and over and over, because it should lead to trust in him. It should be a constant state of running to our Father, running to our Dad, running to our spiritual fulfillment, and constantly trusting him. That is where you are going to find true comfort. That is where you're going to find true contentment, true joy, true peace, true understanding. It is all found in him, and it is never found in something else. And if you are leaning on that, get ready, because God's going to kick it out from under you, because he wants you to rely fully and wholly on him. I hope this encourages you. I hope that you are going to continue to run to him. Love you guys. And I'm so excited that May 10th, I'm going to get to see you all. So keep on keeping on. Keep staying in the Word. Read the rest of Lamentations, and I'll see you next week.